Hello, I just finished uploading, well, yesterday I finished uploading my book, which is entitled uh, Men Should, Women Should Be Running the Countries, Their Countries, Mostly men should be running their economies, and 14 to 17-year-olds should be getting the vote. I dealt with the women part of it before, and when I said I put it on up, I just basically read it. I read the book. It was about 210 pages, and I read the book out over 2 days, about 5.5 hours. I'm currently writing a book about how I would do a movement slash religion. But anyway, the thing I want to talk about today, and well, by the way, I'll let you know when it's out. Well, I'll just do the same thing. I'll just dictate it online. I'll finish it and then I'll dictate it online, probably. The thing I want to talk about today was men running the economies, mostly men. I talked before in video 18 about 018 about men have all these, we have all these negative instincts, lust, greed, lust for violence, lust for power, lust for sex, lust for control, domination, victory, competition, all these things that are no good for politics. They're the absolute wrong thing to have for politics. In politics, you want someone who's not in it for themselves and who's in it to make the country better. And men have too many negative. Most men have too many negative instincts that we've just had since birth. I mean, it's not our fault. We've had them since birth. Apparently, I assume we've had them since caveman days, because I guess there was a point to it back then, but now it's just getting in the way for the most part. But there is a point, and women have less of them. That's why I think women are better at politics than men, but generally. But there is something that many of those instincts, not all of them, but many of those instincts are good for, and that's business. Business, the best business is free market. It's been proven time and again. Free market economics generates the most money for an economy, the fastest. It's the best by a mile. Every time governments intervene, and I laid it out in my book, that they just mess it up. And they do every time. Every time. Central banks are always mess things up. They're useless. They're beyond useless, and governments shouldn't even touch the economy. So, if women ever did get power, then they should. If they did the right thing, they would leave the economy alone. Just leave it alone. But because and they can run the countries, and the men, with women too, but men primarily would run the businesses. And that's where we would thrive, because that's where most of our negative instincts can actually help us. Lust for greed, lust for power, lust for control, lust for victory, competition, all that stuff. That comes in handy. That's very good in politics, or sorry, in business, especially free market economics. So yeah, but that's all screwed up now, because there's been so much government control that it's basically turned economics into, it's sort of effeminized it. It's made it so it's happy, and and it's like, oh, you can never do anything wrong, because if you screw up, the government will bail you out. Well, that's not free market economics. Free market economics is, you make a mistake, you gotta live with it. And you learn from your mistakes and you don't do it again. And besides, if you're only an idiot, if you're just, don't be dumb enough to put money into some kind of economic investment that you can't afford to lose. If you don't do that, you'll be fine. You'll make mistakes, you'll learn from it, and you will make mistakes, and you'll learn from it. And then you will make less the next time, less mistakes the next time, and eventually you'll hopefully do well. But this is what men thrive at, economics. Macroeconomics, free market macroeconomics. And not only do we thrive at it, this is where we learn the most, because we want this, we drive, this is where, because when we screw up, free market economics punishes you, like especially with everybody with cell phones or smartphones where they have cameras and everything, and they can, if somebody treats a customer lousy, or an employee lousily, the employer will put it online almost immediately, or the customer will put it online almost immediately. And that will result in economic boycott So that will teach the business owner or the business employee, upper echelon employee, to grow up and do and not and act better. Their greed for money will force them to grow up and act better. Will force them to do better. That's how they'll learn. If you just make regulations, they don't learn anything. They just resent the regulations and find ways to get around it. But if you make them learn through economic boycott, they'll learn. Look, I can't do it this way. I have to do it the right way, or I'm going to lose money. They'll learn. So it's always better for someone to learn what's right than to be told what's right, and because it's good if you believe them and you do what's right from then on in. But if you're told to by someone you don't respect, you're going to try and find ways around it, and then eventually you might learn. It's better if you just learn. I'm not talking about violence against people. I'm talking about financial things. So, yeah, if women ever do get the power, let men run their economies the way they want. Within the realm of, you got to have fraud laws and some environmental laws and maybe health and safety laws. But outside of that, let them run. Let free market reign, and that's where men can really. And that's where we've been hindered, because we've been hindered by government intervention and central market intervention for at least 20 years now, and that's getting us nowhere. And that's why economies are stagnating. That's why GDP growth is lousy. It's like 2%, 2.5%, 1.2%. It's piddly. We should be growing at 3, 4, 5%. And if free market economics reigned, that's what we would grow like. But so we've got to get women in running the government, and men and women running the economy again with free market economics. So anyway, that's my point for today. Thank you for listening, and have a good day.